Very good. Team previews continue. Atlanta Falcons, win total 9. Last year, 10-6 straight up, 7-9 against the spread, 11-5 to the under. It was all about the defense. When their Super Bowl run 2 years ago, they were 13-3 to the over, and no one could slow them down. I think every home game went over, including the playoffs with the Falcons. So 11-5 to the under last year. They take Ridley with their first pick in the draft, the wide receiver out of Alabama. They lose Poe and Gabriel. The same concerns I had last year carry over into this year. I don't like Sark as an OC. I thought he did a bad job last year. Their play calling was atrocious at times. The reason they made the playoffs was because of the defense. And may he rest in peace, our great friend Dave Malinsky, who said 2 years ago was a fluke. Last year and every year before that, that's the real Matt Ryan. He is now the highest paid player in NFL history. He's good. He's not great. He's not elite. Look at the numbers. 2 years ago was a fluke. The real Matt Ryan showed up last year. He's okay. And he's only got, a couple playoff wins in his career. So win total at 9 in a very competitive division that put 3 teams in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. I mean, we look at Atlanta, and let's start with this, okay? They were in a pretty shitty spot going into last year. Up 28-3 against the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
The biggest collapse in Super Bowl history. You lose the brain trust behind the offense that got Matt Ryan to a QB rating of 117 and got the offense to 33.8 points per game, highest in the league in 2016. You lose all of that, and you come back the next year and hang overtime, and you still win 10 games. And I give Atlanta credit for doing that. It was not an easy spot. Their offense did not click at any point last season the way it did the year before, and yet there they were as a 10-win team at the end of the campaign. Now, there are clearly issues with Steve Sarkisian at offense coordinator. Again, the QB rating under Shanahan was 117. Last year, under Sarkisian, Matt Ryan's QB rating just 91. He had 0 games with 3 touchdown passes last year. 0. 18 fewer touchdowns than he had the previous year. I don't blame it all on Ryan. I don't blame it all on Sarkisian. The running game wasn't as good. The offensive line wasn't as good. The pass catchers were banged up. But the bottom line for this beleaguered offense coordinator is that he's got to get something to work for this offense. Let me get Sarkisian's quote. It's a good one. I've got a really good understanding of every player and the things that they're really good at, the things that maybe they need to work on, the things that I would be wrong putting them in position to do. I think all of those things just put me in a much different level of comfort where you just feel good every day walking in. So Sarkisian's talking the talk about feeling good about this offense, but the bottom line is the production wasn't just down last year. It was way down from where it was a season ago. It's a good thing, as you mentioned, that defense improved by leaps and bounds. That's how they won 10 games a season ago.
They were great. Allowed 16 points per game in the last 7, almost one play away from going to the NFC title game. Remember, they beat the Rams in the first playoff game. Rams handed them 14 points on the special teams mistakes, and then came down to the horrible drive. But again, the play calling was atrocious on that final drive against Philly, and they lost on the road. And then we know what happens with Philly. -2 in the turnover differential. That was good for 19th in the league. What are you concerned about this Julio thing, where I saw a former NFL agent said this is a big ask, that he wants him to redo his deal? He's got 3 years left. That's almost unheard of, and he's hanging out with T.O.
Yeah, it's absolutely a major concern for Atlanta. Their offense is predicated on Julio Jones being the go-to guy. And with Ridley on the other side as the rookie, with Jones taking the pressure off him, all of a sudden that's a really dangerous-looking receiving core. And, of course, not the only 2 weapons that Ryan has at his disposal. But if things get ugly, and look, players tend to sign. Sometimes it takes till training camp. Sometimes it'll take till late August. But players tend to come into camp because they don't get paid if they don't. So it's something worth monitoring with Julio Jones. We don't want to freak out about it, but it's a contract negotiation that could get ugly. So it's something we definitely want to pay attention to. But in my mind, Atlanta's concerns not as much about the offense as it is about the defense. Look, last year, there were issues with the pass rush. Then you lose Dontari Poe and Adrian Claiborne in the offseason. Vic Beasley had 15 and a half sacks in 2016 when Atlanta went to the Super Bowl. Last year he had 5. when you look at Atlanta's defense, and as you mentioned, that defense was killer down the stretch last year. That 17 points per game included the postseason, or 16 points a game in their final 7 contests. They need a pass rush, and Beasley's got to be the key guy in that regard, especially because when you look at what they did in the draft, Pauly, they didn't draft a whole lot of pass rush, with the exception of Yadrin Sinat from USF. I don't know if he's going to be an impact player right off the bat.
All right, schedule. They play the NFC East and the AFC North, the extra games at Green Bay and Arizona at home. Look at the start. My God, you open up the season on the road against the champs, the rematch of the playoff game on that Thursday night. Then you have Carolina and New Orleans at home, 2 playoff teams. That'll be tough. And then later in the season, Teddy, look at after the bye. Look at all the road games at Washington, at Cleveland, at New Orleans, at Green Bay, at Carolina, at Tampa. That is tough. They better get off to a good start. Now, while you do get back-to-back home games, you got to go to Pittsburgh in there as well. That's a tough schedule, and I don't like how it ends. Imagine if they get off to if they lose through their first 3 games. Look how that ends, where it's nothing but road games in the back end of the schedule.
Yeah, I in some ways the schedule is tough, and in other ways you look at it and you go, hey, how many teams have a 5-week stretch where they play Tampa at home, the Giants at home, a bye week, Washington, Cleveland? You know. You can get 4 wins out of that with the bye week in between. You look at the road games, and certainly the challenging road games, as you mentioned, right off the bat. At Philly, at Pittsburgh, at Green Bay, at New Orleans. But you close that, look at the back end of the schedule. At Arizona, at Carolina, at Tampa, the last 3 games of the season. You can make up some ground, in theory, in that group. So it's a mixed bag schedule-wise for the Atlanta Falcons. They're not a team that is way up against the schedule. The schedule rates near the league average.
All right. It's a tough division, Teddy. Do you see 3 teams making the playoffs in this division again? And what do you think of Atlanta's win total? I like Carolina more, and I definitely like the Saints more than Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not looking to bet the Falcons under, flat out. I think this is a good team, and I think in some ways they underachieved last year through adverse circumstances and still won 10 games. I like the defense for Atlanta. I like the quarterback. And the way you're going to make money in the NFL, betting against bad quarterbacks, betting on good quarterbacks. It's not rocket science in that regard. Ryan's a pretty good QB. I don't want to bet him under 9 wins. Like the show? Help us keep the lights on. Please make sure to comment, share, and subscribe to all the Sportsbook Review videos. Thanks so much. Best of luck. Enjoy the game.